right. Hey, Al. We are talking about the echinoderms. All right. So, um, when we kind of talk about symmetry, it can be confusing, as we know. And the echinoderms make that interesting for us because um, while we have bilaterally symmetrical fossils in larvae, this indicates that radial symmetry is a derived character, um, but and can be limiting for free moving animals. But echinoderms, yeah, they possess features not seen in other phyla. So they're interesting here. Um, our these are our deuterostomes, which means second. Mouth forms second, anus forms first. So this is the Echinodermata, the Hemichordata, and the Chordata make up the deuterostomes. Everybody else previously was a protostome, meaning their mouth formed first. Excuse me. So let's talk about these guys. So the echinoderms and the hemichordates are closely related, and they share these guys share typical deuterostome features, a three-part or tripartite coelom with 3 germ layers, similar larval forms, and a specialized filtering complex known as the axial complex. So that's a characteristic that you need to know. In phylum Echinodermata, so they're very, very unique. They have a calcareous endoskeleton. So they have either large plates or these small ossicles. They have a water vascular system. They have these pedicellariae that we'll talk about more in a moment. They have dermal brachiae and pentaradial symmetry in adults, which again makes the symmetry stuff interesting with this group. So their larvae are bilateral. So that's why they're sort of in the more advanced group evolutionarily. And their fossils support the idea that this pentaradial symmetry that they metamorphosize into as an adult is sort of a derived trait that came over time. So this is looking at all of the different echinoderms. Okay, so we're going to talk about a number of these different groups. None are marine. That doesn't make sense. Many are marine. They are benthic as adults. So some are particle feeders, many are predators. Sea urchins, for example, feed on algae. Crinoids feed on plankton. Brittle stars are scavengers or filter feeders, and sea cucumbers are going to be suspension or deposit feeders, which are kind of similar to filter feeders. This is a look at the different diversity of sea stars. So lots of different forms, textures, colorations. So if we look at the sea stars, they live in muddy or sandy bottoms or along coral reefs, and they're often brightly colored. They have a central disc with tapering arms, usually 5 arms, but they can have more. Their mouth is on the oral surface, and the side opposite of the mouth is called the aboral surface. They have what are called ambulacrum that run from the mouth to the tip of each arm. We'll see that in a minute. And the ambulacral groove is bordered by rows of tiny tube feet. Wait till you see these tube feet. They're so cute. And their tiny tube feet are bordered by movable spines. So here is a look at their central disc, anus, the arm, And then if we look underneath at the ventral side of the organism, we see the mouth in the center. And then you zoom in on these tiny tube feet and the little spines behind them. So their structure, they have a radial nerve in the center of their umbilical grooves. Under the nerve is an extension of their coelom. So it's a radial canal of their water vascular system, and this is how they power those tiny tube feet to move. And everyone except the crinoids, ossicles, cover these structures, and that underside is usually rough and spiny. And many species have pincher-like pedicellariae. They keep the body's first surface free of debris, and they also sometimes have papillae, which are sort of skin gills, and they're soft projections between ossicles that help with gas exchange. So if we look at the anatomy here, we'll get to see this in class. There's the ring canal. Here we have a look at the water vascular system, the cardiac stomach, the pyloric stomach, the cecum, the gonads. Okay, so this is looking at the C-star pedicellariae. So if you zoom in on these little guys, they have a stalk and they have these different muscles. And these muscles allow them to move. So under the epidermis is a mesodermal endoskeleton. And they also have small calcareous plates or ossicles that are bound together with collagen, that our favorite protein. And the ossicles have like a meshwork of spaces filled with fibers, and dermal cells called the serum. The coelom of the asteroids, they have compartments that give rise to their adult structures. One, they have a coelom filled with fluid, and that circulates fluid, and then respiratory gases are going to diffuse across the papillae that line the coelom and the tube feet. So this, the water vascular system is another coelomic compartment and unique to echinoderms. It's a system of canals and the little tube feet with dermal ossicles, and it forms a literal hydraulic system. Functions in locomotion, food gathering, respiration, excretion. It's open to the outside at the madreporite on the aberral side, that ventral side, which leads to the stone canal, which joins the ring canal, which encircles the mouth. And then those radial canals diverge from the ring into the ray. There are special Polian vesicles that attach to the ring canal of the water vascular system. There are small lateral canals, and this operates hydraulically, where you have muscles contracting, forcing fluid and extending the podium, and then the contraction of the foot forces the fluid back into the ampulla. Small muscles in the end of the little tiny tube feet then raise the section, creating suction. And then this coordinated action by all the tube feet at the same time can move the star up and down ventral surfaces. It's pretty cool. Feeding and digestive system. They have a mouth that leads to a two-part stomach. They have a lower cardiac stomach that can actually be everted through the mouth during feeding. They have an upper pyloric stomach. Digestion is mostly extracellular. Some lack an intestine and an anus, and they consume a wide range of food. Okay, so they have a hemel system, which is a system of tissue strands enclosing unlined channels. This is not well developed in the asteroids. Echinoderms generally lack a brain and distinct ganglia, so we aren't as advanced neurologically here. We have 3 subsystems, a nerve ring and radial nerves, and these occur at different levels in the disc and the arms. There is a nerve net or a nerve plexus that connects all the systems, and this does include an eye spot at the tip of each arm. And they also have sensory cells scattered all over their epidermis. Sexes are separate in most species, and they have a pair of gonads in their interradial space with external fertilization. Echinoderms, like flatworms, can regenerate lost parts. Sea stars exhibit what's called autotomy, which is they can actually cast off injured arms and regenerate new ones. Pretty neat. Most sea stars produce free-swimming larvae, and they, again, have that deuterostome pattern and with coelomic compartments. So this is a look at sea star metamorphosis, where the original anus actually rotates to be on the opposite side of the body. Interesting. So their larvae have cilia and grow 3 adhesive arms. And when they get there, they're called a brachiolaria, which then attach to a substrate and then metamorphosize into a radial juvenile. And then we have the arms and the tube appear. So this is looking at some different larvae in different echinoderms. Kind of neat looking. Sea daisies were once their own taxonomic class. They're now in class Asteroidea. They are disc-shaped, and there's 3 known species. They're pentaradial, but they don't have arms, and their tube feet are located around the disc, not in the umbilical areas. And their water vascular system actually has 2 concentric ring canals, and they have a hydropore that connects the inner ring. So this is a sea daisy. So then we have class Ophiuroidea. These are the brittle sea stars. We'll get to take a look at these. They don't have pedicellariae or papillae. And their ambulacral grooves are closed and covered with ossicles. And their tube feet lack suckers. So they have this more either like spiky or kind of a more flowery almost look to them. This is looking up a little more closer. There's their madreporite. Here's their jaw and their mouth. The spines on the side. They move by arm movement. They have movable plates around the jaws and mouth. No anus. All their visceral organs are in their central disc, and they only have a stomach, like a sac-like stomach, no intestine. So some are hermaphroditic for these guys. Sexes are usually separate. They do have a larva. They do go through metamorphosis, and their water vascular, nervous, and hemal systems are like sea stars. They are kind of secretive. They don't like to live in light, so they hide in rock crevices, and they're very, very fragile. And they can regenerate, but super fragile. Echinoidea. These are their bodies are enclosed in endoskeletal tests or shells. We've heard that term before in reference to the protists. They're formed by dermal ossicles. They don't have arms, but their test has 5-part symmetry. sea urchins, so there are regular and irregular sea urchins. Regular are sort of the hemispherical shape, radial symmetry, long spines, 2 feet. Sand dollars and heart urchins are the irregular ones because they are secondarily bilateral, not radial. They have short spines and they move mostly with their spines, not 2 feet. That's a look at a sea urchin. And that is a look at a heart urchin. So you can see there's a huge difference there. Sorry. Okay. So the test has double rows of plates. So, and your tube feet extend along these multiple umbilical rolls, where your spines again are moved by small muscles at the bases. These guys have pedicellariae with venom glands. The mouth is usually surrounded by 5 teeth, and some have branched gills, and they have an anus, genital pore, and their madreporite are all arboreal or ventral. Here's our mouth, our nerve ring. We'll test on the outside here. Gonads, stomach, all our organs there. Inside the test is called Aristotle's lantern. Where is that? Here, Aristotle's lantern. Here we go, Aristotle's lantern. Okay, and it's a complex set of chewing structures. These guys eat algae and other organic matter. Okay. So this is a look at these teeth with the mouth, and this is an alveolus here in the front, and these are protractor muscles and retractor muscles. In these echinoids, the sexes are separate. Gametes are shed into the sea for external fertilization. Then we have class Holothuroidea. These are the sea cucumbers, and they actually kind of resemble cucumbers. They're elongated in their oral arboreal axis. Their ossicles are reduced, and their body wall is kind of leathery. Some crawl on the ocean floor, and others burrow under rocks. They don't have a head. Cephalization is absent, so there is no, or they might have a head, but they don't have a concentration of sensory organs to the head region of the body, which is what cephalization is. So this is a look at our sea cucumbers. So these are interesting friends. They typically lie on one side, and they do have some tiny tube feet, so they can move. Sometimes they are secondarily bilateral instead of radial. And they do have oral tentacles modified, that are modified tube feet surrounding the mouth. This is a look at sea cucumber ossicles. Their coelomic cavity, so their coelom serves as a hydrostatic skeleton, and they have a respiratory tree composed of branched tubes that assists with respiration and excretion. And they have gas exchange through both the skin and their tube feet. There is in the anatomy of a sea cucumber. So we've got our tentacles up here, our ring canal, our madreporite, our stomach. These are little tube feet on the outside. So in these guys, the sexes are separate. Some are hermaphroditic. They usually have a single gonad, and fertilization is also external. These guys form actually a lot of the biomass of the sea floor, which is kind of impressive. They have some cool defenses where they can create some toxins and become very sticky. And they can also regenerate their digestive tract, respiratory tree, or gonads that they can discharge from their bodies. The Crinoidea, these guys are the sea lilies and feather stars. They are attached to something for most of their life. They have like the sea lilies look like a flower at the end of a stalk. Many of the adults are free moving, but could be sessile. And many are deep water, even though the feather stars are more shallow water. So this is the external anatomy of a sea lily. There is a feather star. So their body's covered in leathery skin with calcareous plates, and they have 5 arms with pinnules arranged like a feather. The sessile ones have a stalk formed of plates, and the stalk is attached to the arboreal surface. The metaporite spines and the pedicellariae are all absent in the crinoids. So their upper and or oral surface has a mouth and an anus. They use tube feet and mucus to capture food. They have a water vascular system, not many sense organs. Sexes are separate. Gonads are simple. Free swimming larvae before they metamorphosize. The echinoderm fossil record is pretty extensive, even though we have 20 recognized classes, but only 5 living today. And so they were pretty numerous in the past. Bilateral symmetry was lost early. So there were some interesting groups early on. There is some interesting evolutionary relationships that we're not going to go into detail about. So diversification of echinoderms and their adaptations has been limited by that radial symmetry, the water vascular system, and the dermoendoskeleton. And unfortunately, any ancestral brain or sense organs were lost when they sort of adopted that pentaradial symmetry as adults. And many are mostly benthic habitats, so bottom of the ocean, and there's some rare pelagic or sort of free ocean swimming forms. The hemichordates, so these are formally considered a subphylum of chordates based on the presence of gill slits and a rudimentary notochord. And their notochord is actually apparently an evagination of their mouth cavity and is not homologous with chordates. They're not an exciting group. They're worm-like bottom dwellers. They usually live in shallow water. They are sedentary. And we have 2 classes, the Ontaronusta. These are the acorn worms, and they have a mucus-covered body with a tongue-like proboscis, a collar, and a trunk. Many are deposit or suspension feeders. They don't have gills, gas exchange on the body surface. Here is an acorn worm. We do still have a heart. We have a collar coelom, collar nerve cord, the trunk nerve cord, blood vessels, pharynx. So we're still pretty advanced, even though we don't look it. This is looking at the mouth open and closed in feeding. They have blood that pumps through a network of sinuses called glomerulus. This also helps with excretory function. They have a ventral nerve cord and a larger dorsal nerve cord that's hollow in some species. Separate sexes. External fertilization. Here's a look at a larva of a hemichordate compared to an echinoderm. You can see that we have a lot more advancement in the hemichordate than the echinoderm. The pterobranchs are small colonial animals. They have arms somewhat like tentacles that actually contain coelomic extensions, similar to a lophophore. They capture food in mucus on the tentacles, and then they transport that to their mouth, and their anus is actually near their mouth. Super cool. They have a dorsal hollow nerve cord, or they don't have a dorsal hollow nerve cord. And otherwise, their nervous system is similar to those acorn worms, We have both dioecious and monoecious species, so two sexes or one sex, and they can asexually reproduce by budding. So this is a look at a pterobranch. They are, there's tentacles, the arms, you got your collar, your trunk, your shield. All right. That covers the echinoderms. So be prepared to take a look at some echinoderms and do some dissecting when we meet again.